this end when the final girl kills the main bad guy and the credits roll.
And welcome to the Final Girl Podcast. This is the podcast where we discuss and analyze your favorite horror movies. My name is Ryan Turman, and with me today we have two special guests. We have returning Michael Bonner.
Hello.
And we have Roger Harper.
Hello.
Peaking already, god dang. Okay.
That's what I do best.
All right, yes, this is the first episode we've had in a while, I believe since the Babadook, where we've had two guests. And I'm very excited to have you two here in the studio with me tonight to discuss a movie I think we're going to have fun talking about.
I had fun watching it again.
Yeah.
Classic.
This is,
One of my favorites.
This is one that I definitely wanted to make sure Michael was on. I know I say that about a lot of movies, having Michael on.
What can I say? I bring grade A content to your table.
I mean, honestly.
I bring grade C or D content at best, but you're welcome.
You just say grade A, C, or D
No, I
content.
said I bring grade C or D content at best, but you're welcome.
Just find an average and we'll just figure it out in the
There
middle.
we go.
You've heard my show, haven't you? Grade C or D content.
All right. Anyway, tonight, everyone, we will be discussing the iconic, the classic. You probably wouldn't have a lot of horror movies without it. Ridley Scott's 1979 Alien. Oh, I got so excited just saying
You're bringing
that.
the heat here tonight. Like, we got to do this film some justice.
Oh,
I'm just letting
absolutely.
you know. Like,
This is
It's
a big
a-
film.
this could make or break your podcasting career if I mess this up.
I would argue this is the biggest movie you have covered to date on the
agree.
Final Girl podcast.
I mean, honestly, you're not wrong because this movie set the precedent for so many horror movies to follow. So you're not wrong. This is probably one of the biggest films we've covered so far. And like I said, I'm super excited to talk about it. So let's go ahead and just jump in with this. But before we get started, real quick, as I always say, if you've not seen this film, spoiler alerts ahead, big spoiler alerts. Also, do yourself a favor and go watch this movie if you've not seen it.
It's available on HBO Max streaming service. That's where I watched it today.
It is. It's also like only $1.99 on Amazon Prime to
There you go.
watch. That's where I watched it. So
Michael, didn't you mention the 4K version now out too?
Yeah, it's got a full remaster.
Got to
It
buy
looks
that.
absolutely gorgeous. Definitely get it. We're not telling you to watch this movie because we want you to keep up with the show. We're telling you to watch this movie because it's fucking amazing.
Who hasn't seen
If
this?
you
This is an iconic franchise.
That's what I'm at. Like, if you haven't seen this and you're listening to the show, one, slap yourself in the face. Two, go watch this movie.
also, two things real quick. First of all, when you hear Alien, if you've not seen the original Alien and you think about Alien versus Predator,
Oh, you poor
forget
boy.
everything. I feel so bad for you because Alien versus Predator was shit. Granted, when I was like I wasn't even 15. When did that movie come out? When I was a kid,
Alien vs. Predator came out in the 90s. I don't remember exactly.
Alien versus Predator did not come out in the 90s.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking something else.
It came out in like the early 2000s. But yeah, when I watched it originally, I enjoyed that movie. But as an adult now who has refined taste in movies, it's trash. But no, do yourself a favor. Watch Alien. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't watch it. It's so good. Forget about Alien versus Predator.
Just
watch
watch
this one.
the series in order. Just go back to Alien 1 and watch the series.
Yeah,
Right.
watch one and watch
Aliens.
Aliens,
And then stop.
and then watch. I would say you're fine to watch Alien 3. It's not a bad movie, but Alien
Isn't-
Resurrection is terrible.
Isn't
Don't
Sigourney
bother.
Weaver in 3 too?
Sigourney
Yeah.
Weaver's in. I think
she's in all the first three. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And then also watch Prometheus too. That's worthwhile to watch to get some content.
Alien Covenant is good as well.
Yeah.
It's just a great universe that was founded. The expanded universe with Alien versus Predator wasn't fantastic, but definitely
Great.
still worth watching.
The reason why that franchise failed so hard is because they wanted it to be PG-13. They didn't want it to be an R rating, which both Alien and Predator were both R-rated movies.
Yep.
How can you take two R-rated franchises and push them together and be like, let's make it PG-13?
There was a culture though in movies where
There was.
came out to where it was in that early 2000s where everyone wanted all their movies to be more accessible. So they started to dumb it down and try to make it towards less cussing and
Exactly.
less blood.
Well, they also
But-
wanted to bank off the kids who had played Alien vs. Predator in the arcades.
That's the
so they're
thing,
trying
yeah.
to cater to that crowd, and it.
They wanted people to go see their movies. So that was the curse of the early 2000s is all these horror movies were dumbed down to be PG-13.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Nightmare remake.
I mentioned there were two things to mention before that. First, go watch this movie. Second of all, as the fellow listeners of this podcast, you guys probably know whenever Michael's on, we're talking about some deep and dark shit. That's not the case for this movie. This movie is not one that's going to make you want to go home and hug yourself and cry like The Witch or
for yourself.
Midsommar. This movie has some horror. It's a lot of sci-fi, a lot of horror, but it's not that deep, dark, depressing shit that Michael's usually on for. So,
Well, one, thanks for outing me on the show. Two, he's not wrong. So I mean, you're going to be getting something different out of this movie. It's not a slasher film,
Right.
for instance, but it's more of it's like a small psychological twist of a horror, but it's more of a just a bloody scare movie.
I almost want to call it. It's
almost.
like a chase.
Yeah, that's
I
a
was
good
going
way
to say
to put it.
there are slasher elements of this film to where instead of a person with a knife, though, you have this alien hunting this group of space
With a
explorers
mouth knife.
with a mouth knife.
A mouth knife with teeth.
So yes, guys, we are discussing Ridley Scott's 1979 Alien. As I said, this is directed by Ridley Scott. It is written by Dan O'Bannon, and this has a whirlwind of a cast. So there's only like 7 people, I think, on the cast, but they're all big names. We have Tom Skerritt, Sigourney Weaver, Veronica Cartwright, Harry Dean Stanton, John Hurt, Sir Ian Holm, and Yaphet Kotto. So a great cast.
It's an amazing cast.
Yeah,
Really is.
it's fantastic. So let's just go ahead and jump right into this film. I mean, let's get up into space and hop aboard the Nostromo. Here we go.
Oh boy.
All right.
Can't possibly end well.
So, as I said, we are in space. It is what's the year? It's like 2120 or something like that.
2120. Yep.
2120, yeah. So we are in the future, 100 years in the future.
Hopefully
so
better than
we'll-
2020.
Yeah, hopefully it's better than 2020.
If this movie indicates anything, though, maybe not.
So, like I said, we're on the commercial spaceship Nostromo, and they're returning back to Earth with their 7-member crew. They're all in stasis. When this movie first starts out, it's quiet. The beginning of this movie reminds me so much of 2001: A Space Odyssey, just from the sheer beauty of the spaceship and like how quiet it is on board. Because that's one of my favorite scenes of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Is that scene where the 2 astronauts are talking and Hal's watching them. And it's just silent. There's no sound. And that's just what this reminds me of for some, because it's that eerie, unsettling silence almost.
Yeah, and I would even say that like the silence goes. These types of movies, they have like a trickery to them. So the silence, although you could take it as foreboding, the way I took it is more like it's peaceful, and it was peaceful.
Oh,
it
absolutely.
really was.
Yeah,
it
but
was.
it's tricking you into thinking the movie's a little different, especially when you can imagine when the movie first came out.
Right.
No one was expecting this level of like, I don't want to say like terror, because the movie isn't horrifying.
No.
But
Yeah.
no one was expecting what it was.
Well, they were giving you this as security too. It's like, oh, this is a towing ship. You know, they're not
they're-
out there looking for
That's-
space creatures. They're out there to help these tow some spaceships. And
Exactly.
I agree with Roger. That's what I was trying to go for. It was a false sense of security.
Right, they're lulling
Thank you,
you.
Roger.
They're literally lulling you into the sense of security
Yep.
by showing you these sleeping passengers aboard the ship. And right away we get introduced to our crew. They're all, like I said, they're all in stasis. And Mother, who was the ship's like computer brain, she wakes them up, which they shouldn't have been woken up because we come to find out they're not near Earth yet.
Halfway through their trip.
They're halfway there. But as they wake up, the first one to be awoken is our executive officer, Kane, played by John Hurt. And this is the first point of thing I want to stop and bring up here. Again, like I said, we're going to have spoiler alerts throughout this whole thing, so I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. I want to ask you all's opinion on this, because I thought about this while I was watching this today. Kane is the first one awake. Kane is the first one to volunteer to go onto the alien planet. Kane's the first one to die. Do you think this has some kind of, like, reasoning behind this? Do you think there's a reason, like him being the first one awake, then also him to be the first one to be killed?
I feel like he's the
Or do
captain.
you think it's just a coincidence?
I feel like he's the first one awake. He's the captain. That was like the first thing that struck me.
Well, he's not the
But
captain.
he's not. But we
Right.
didn't know that when he first woke up. It kind of leads you to think, okay, this is the main character because he's the one that's awake first.
Okay.
And he's the one volunteering to get out of that planet. So you're thinking, okay, this is his story to tell. And then you mentioned already, he's the first one to die. So it throws that curveball right at you immediately. You're not thinking about Ellen Ripley at this point. You're thinking, oh, this is about Kane.
Right. So you're taking the approach to where this whole movie's throwing the audience for a curveball the entire time. They're like, oh, let's have Kane be the first one to wake up because everyone's going to think, oh, he's the main character. And then when we kill him off, everyone's going to be like, oh, shit, he had Final Girl written all over him. But
I think I think it's hard to tell because if we're looking at this from a 2020 perspective, someone watching this for the first time, they're watching this movie. Arguably, probably the biggest name they're going to see is Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
So they're going to
younger people who
immediately
won't
think
recognize a lot of these guys.
this is everyone in day and age. Everyone knows who Sigourney Weaver is from Alien. But if you watch this whenever it first came out, that probably was hard to tell.
She was. This was like her breakout.
This was her breakout film. So I think Roger's right, and it did create a sense of misdirection. But from the way I understood it was kind of, I think what you were kind of getting at, the thematic element of first,
Right.
second. So it's like a very subtle foreshadowing that they were trying to instill.
Okay.
So,
and I love the way the scene is shot, by the way. I love the like fades that you get from him like waking up out of stasis to him sitting up and just being like looking like me get up in the morning for work, basically, like just dead tired. But you have to imagine, I don't know how long they were in stasis, but like I can't imagine coming out of hibernation for however long they were in hibernation. That can't be something easy to wake up from.
yeah, I don't remember if it specifically stated it, but they lead you to believe. I mean, it's years and years.
Right.
So,
But yeah, as I said, we have 7 members in our crew, so let's go ahead and meet those members. We have our captain. His name is Dallas. We've already met Executive Officer Kane. Are you raising your hand for something?
I am. You mentioned it having been years and years they were in stasis, but they did mention they were halfway back from their journey, correct?
Right.
This is possible spoilers for the end of the film, but not necessarily quite. But Ellen Ripley did at the end of the film mention it being 6 weeks before she's back into Earth territory.
okay.
I didn't notice that, so yeah.
That's a good observation.
Okay, so then... But even then, you think
Why would
about
they
it...
be in stasis for 12 weeks? That seems kind of weak.
But you also think about it, though, too, space-time continuum, the time... Like, have you ever seen... what's the Matthew McConaughey movie where he's in space?
Oh, Interstellar?
Interstellar.
God,
I
what
need
a
to
great
watch
movie.
that. I've never seen it.
Oh, my God.
It's such a good movie. But the planet where they land on, where it's like a year's
true.
time for a minute on that planet, like
Yep.
a year Earth time for a minute on that planet, it's crazy. So you might think they're out that far. They
true.
might have figured out a way to make time travel or space travel faster, but still 12 weeks of their time is like a year or two on Earth.
A lot of unknowns.
Okay. Yeah,
A lot of
I
unknowns.
didn't think about it from that aspect.
So, yeah, as I was saying, we have Captain Dallas, Executive Officer Kane, Warrant Officer Ripley, Navigator Lambert, Science Officer Ash, and our 2 engineers, Parker and Brett. And I think Parker is probably my favorite character in this entire movie.
Parker is badass.
He's
kind of an asshole,
I love how he spends the first like 20 minutes of the movie just like
bitching about everything.
bitching about getting paid. He wants more. He wants more money.
And the food sucks.
Yeah, and then he's got his little lackey Brett who's just like saying right to everything. He's like, I'll agree to
Right.
everything. Yep, right. So yeah, they realize they're awake, so that must mean they're getting closer to Earth. But upon some investigation from Captain Dallas, we find out that we are still halfway between the Earth and where they were coming from. So they realize they got woken up because of a potential distress call they picked up. Excuse me. And so this distress call must be investigated as per orders of Ash, who bitches out Parker because he's like, screw that, let's just go home. They're not our responsibility. Ash just says, well, if we don't go investigate it, you're not going to get paid at all. Mm-hmm. So it's null and void if you don't go investigate.
And then Parker's like, let's go.
And Parker's like, okay, fine, let's go do it. So they head towards the distress signal, and there's not really a whole lot going on that I can really recall. I just watched this movie today, and I don't really remember a whole bunch in between this and when they get to the island. Oh, not the island, but the planet. And so they land on the planet.
Space island.
Right, the space island.
If it's a small enough planet, I mean, technically.
No, it wouldn't be an island. No, it would not. That makes no sense, Roger. So they go towards the island. Oh, God, I'm going to call it an island. It's an alien island. Okay, here we go.
We're going to the alien island.
They go to the planet. And as I said before, Kane is the first to mention, I want to be the one to take charge of this. I want to lead. I want to go be the first one out there. And so Dallas opts for himself, Kane, and Lambert to go explore the alien planet. As they're landing, it's kind of a rough land. It's like a very rocky terrain, so it's a rough landing. They find some damage to the ship because it's a pretty intense landing they have there.
An intense island tropical storm.
Yeah, there's a pretty intense hurricane coming through. And so I love this scene here because Dallas cuts away to Parker and Brett and he's like, hey, how long will it take to fix this ship? And Brett's like, probably about 17 hours. And Parker responds, it'll be about 25 hours. Because he's just like, we're gonna dig off a little bit. So
Yeah. Also, like, coming from someone like, in my job, I have to give a lot of deadlines and stuff. I always either double or tack on extra time to any deadline.
Right.
So it makes myself look good, for one, whenever I finish it early, but also just in case things mess up, you never want to tell people so they're angry whenever it doesn't get delivered.
Great life hack.
I also love the dynamic between Parker, Brett, and the rest of the crew because there's almost like this dynamic to where Parker and Brett are like the scum of the earth because they're engineers. They're not the head honchos here.
Not even taken seriously.
And I'm just like, I know engineers, and they're way smarter than I am. And I'm like, so what would that make me to them?
I think it's just a little bit of realism in that aspect, because like when you think about, I don't necessarily think it's the fact that they consider them dumber.
Right.
I think it's just like probably one in terms of pay, but two also like it just creates like a more humanistic dynamic to the crew, because it's like if you have a little bit of like disparity in the action. Or I should say the dialogue that takes place, it creates like a camaraderie.
Right.
And even if it is, two people making fun of another couple people, it just creates like a back and forth.
It's like you guys with me.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. We
Yeah.
just shit on Roger all the time.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we don't love him. That just means, it's just,
If you don't love
It
it,
just
creating
makes
a
that-
dynamic.
Makes that camaraderie amongst friends, right? So yeah, Dallas, Kane, and Lambert go to explore the planet. And we get this weird like scene from Ash to where he's like giving jazz fingers. He's like
It was strange.
He's in like the control booth doing his jazz fingers. We come to find out later what's going on with him, but we're gonna pause that for now. Meanwhile, while Dallas and them are exploring the planet, Ripley comes up to Ash and says, has Mother figured out the transcript yet? Has she deciphered anything from the transcript? And Ash says no. And she says, can I try? So Ash is like, okay, sure, go ahead. And so she takes it, and as she's running it through the code, pretty much, it's all binary code, it looks like, is what it was given. She deciphers about half of it to not be a transmission for distress. It's a warning saying, stay away. And so she's like, we have to go get the others and get them back here. And Ash says, don't worry about them. By the time you get to them, they'll already probably be back.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else picked up on this or not, and I'm sure you guys did, but whenever she asks if she can try, just the way that Ash like just dismisses it as if it's just like,
she can't.
yeah, sure, go ahead.
You're not gonna be able to do it, yeah.
So it's another slight tell as there's something going on.
And I have something to mention about that here whenever they get back to the ship about that. So while Ripley is deciphering this code, Dallas, Kane, and Lambert are exploring the planet, and they come across this old alien body. It's like a fossilized alien body. It's giant, first of all. And as they're examining it, Dallas points out that it looks like his bones were exploded from the inside out. And so they don't really know what to make of it. Lambert's freaking out. She wants to get the hell out of there. She says multiple times, can we please get the hell out of here?
It's weird. There's like this weird like blue
creepy.
mist on the floor,
Right.
and it's dark.
Don't get me wrong. I agree. I would be terrified too, probably. But I don't know, because I feel like I'd be like, damn, this is so cool. But at the same time, damn, I'm terrified.
Yeah, I feel like if I was already down in there, I'd be like, yeah, I'm already here. Like, this is really cool. I think the terrified phase would have come like when I got out of the
Beforehand,
ship on an
Right.
alien
It's like,
island or
it's not such a
planet.
good idea.
Yeah. And so while they're examining that, Kane presses forward and discovers a cave. And so he descends down this cave and finds more of that blue mist you're talking about that has kind of
It's like a sorry,
electronic.
I don't mean to interrupt. It's like just to set the scenery for those who haven't seen this, but it's like a pit almost. It's
a
a cave,
giant.
but it's like straight down into the ground. So I don't want anyone to think they're like walking into a wall or
Right,
anything.
yeah, sorry. So yeah, he goes down like a hole and it opens up into a cavern. Yeah, it's like a giant, almost, I don't want to say cathedral, but it's like
It's huge.
It's almost like a giant cathedral, yeah. And amongst the blue mist, he finds hundreds of eggs on the floor. And being his goofy self that he kind of is, making jokes as he's walking along, he slips and falls and lands right beside one of the eggs, where he discovers there is moving life within inside the egg. I'd already have been like, nope, I'm out of here
Run away. Just
at
run
this
away.
point. But Kane presses forward, and as soon as he touches it, the egg blossoms open before him, and we see something squirming inside the egg, and we get our first jump scare, probably one of the only jump scares in the movie, I think. One of the
There's
only,
a few,
There's a
but
couple more.
probably one of the most effective ones, I feel
Right,
like,
yep.
yeah. Of our first instance of an alien, the face hugger, jump out and latches on to Kane's face. And then we hear him scream, and it kind of cuts away. And the next we see is Dallas and Lambert returning with Kane unconscious to the ship.
Can I say something here real quick? So I know we talked about like the whole like getting away here. That's something that when I had watched this movie last, I've seen this movie like 20 times, but I always latch on to that scene in particular because like for me, and you mentioned as well, if I'm down there and I'm like, all right, this weird egg thing, there's something moving inside of it, I'm gonna get out of there. I'm gonna be like, fuck this, and I'm leaving. I'm not gonna mess with this thing. But Kane's job was what? Engineer?
No, he was second in command.
He's second. That's it.
Yeah, he's executive officer. Yeah.
Okay, maybe.
It's Dallas is captain, and then Kane's second in command, Ripley's third in command, and then after that, it's kind of just like the rest of them are all just
crew members.
crew members. Yeah,
Okay, they don't have
scientists and-
specialties or anything like that.
The Parker and Brett are engineers.
Other
Ash
than
is the
them?
science officer. Lambert's the navigator, so she's the one who navigates everything.
I see. When I was watching this, I kind of understood that he was like part of engineering. I'm not saying he was an engineer, but like he seemed to have that type of like vibe to him. That he was like part scientist, part engineer, just the way that he held himself, and
Right.
the way that he was communicating and kind of instructing and leading. And I kind of took that the attitude that his character portrayed was the reason that they had him find that, was because it didn't make sense for the other characters when they got close to that to act the way that they did.
Oh,
but his
absolutely.
character is very like he seeks knowledge and he's very curious, but he's not stupid.
Right.
So I just felt like it was great choice to choose that character to select.
Absolutely.
To do what
And
he did.
plus, going back to what Roger said earlier, if you play on the fact that everyone in the audience at this time in 1979 thinks Kane is your main character, it makes perfect sense for Kane to be the one to go down there and find the egg.
Because he's the one that's like, I feel like he's there for the sake of an adventure. Like I
Right,
feel like he's the guy
absolutely.
who signed up for this. Like, yeah, you know.
Right. And that's kind of the way, like Michael said, that's the way he plays himself off. He's kind of like that fun-loving, adventure-seeking, almost the comic relief of the group, except for Parker. Parker clearly is the comic relief,
Right.
but like,
You know what they say? Curiosity killed the cat.
yeah, it did. It didn't kill Jonesy though.
Did not kill Jonesy.
Jonesy, for those who don't know, if you haven't watched the film, is the cat, the orange tabby cat who's on the ship. Which I have stuff to talk about Jonesy later on, so we'll get there. But yes, the face hugger. Who? Okay, let me try to best describe, because I want to talk about each three forms of the xenomorph, because they're all beautifully designed and beautifully made.
Amazing.
So the face hugger, if you've never seen a face hugger, first of all, just Google it. That's the easiest way for me to describe what it looks like. But it basically looks like two hands connected at the wrist with fingers on the outside and a tail, like a scorpion tail almost, kind of like thing.
It's almost like horseshoe crabbish.
Yeah, that's a great way. It's
Yeah.
almost like horseshoe
Yeah.
crabbish.
Yeah, underneath the horseshoe crab, or as it was once described to me, you take a manta ray, and instead of having like big wings, it has hands on both of its sides. It looks exactly like that.
Yeah.
Except very rigid and like
Bony.
a peach color. Yeah,
Yeah.
bony and rigid and very strange.
That's something you would want to run from if you saw it, even not knowing what it was.
Absolutely.
true.
Yeah. So this thing is attached to Kane's face. As I said, Dallas and Lambert bring him back on ship, and Ripley locks them down. She does not let them back on the ship. She says, I can't let you on board because there's a creature attached to Kane, literally an alien life form attached to Kane. It would break all quarantine protocol. It can endanger everyone else on the ship. And Dallas gives her the executive order, I'm your captain, let me on board right now, which she denies. She says, no, when you're not on the ship, I'm in charge. So therefore, I will not let you on the ship. Ash, however, being a little bastard that he is, walks down to the door and pushes a button and lets them on board.
Of course
He's
he
a
does.
dick.
I love Ash. I love to hate Ash's character.
Yeah, Ian Holm did a
Ian
fantastic
Holm
He's
job.
easily
plays
the most
him-
dislikable character in the
Absolutely.
movie.
Ian Holm plays him fantastically because he is so just... And he's an asshole, but he's like played perfectly.
And I
So-
want to mention something here too, and we'll there's a dynamic whenever if you watch this movie and then you go to watch the movie Prometheus, there's a dynamic that takes place between Ash's character and then whoever Michael Fassbender plays in that. I don't remember his name, but the character he plays in that movie. I won't say anything because I don't want to give away any spoilers for what we're talking about or that movie if you haven't seen it. But they mirror that dynamic just so wonderfully between those two movies, especially in the sense of the end goal and the overall sense of accomplishment of what those two characters have. And it's all due to a credit to how well Ian Holm acts this character and how well this is written. What was the guy's name you mentioned that wrote this? Because he needs a round of applause.
It was Dan O'Bannon.
It's so well done. So I'm sorry to segue there, but
oh no, you're
it's just,
fine.
for those of you who have more than likely seen those other movies and know the ending of this, we're not going to spoil it now, but can draw that comparison. Just a big shout out to one, this movie in general, but two, the acting by Ian Holm and what comes to the table later.
Absolutely. So yeah, Ian lets them in. Ash lets Dallas and Lambert in with Kane's body. They bring him to the infirmary, where they saw off Kane's mask and realize that this face hugger or this creature. I keep want to call it a face hugger because I know that's what they're called now in canon, but. Where this creature has attached itself to his face, wrapped its tail around his throat, and according to X-rays, it looks as if it's feeding him oxygen down his throat to keep him alive.
Can I just describe how this thing is attached? Because again, I know that you've probably have already seen this movie, but I think this is like one of the most iconic creatures because of one, its stages that it has, but two, just the ferocity of this little bitch. So the way this thing attaches itself to its face. It's like the underside of it has like this weird, and I'm not trying to be perverted here. It looks like a vagina. It does. It's got like this weird open skin slit thing, and it's got this thing that comes out of it, and it goes down its mouth, and it's attached right there. And that's like in the middle part of how Ryan was describing the two hands. And then it's like the legs of this thing is like wrapped around the back of your head, and it's like holding and cradling the head. While the tail of it runs down like the base of your neck under your chin and like wraps around your neck. And as we'll talk about in a little bit, if you attempt to remove it, that tightens up.
Right.
To kill the host.
Which is what they start to do. Dallas is automatically like, we need to get this thing off of Kane. We need to figure out what's going on here. So they attempt to pry one of the fingers or one of the hands up off this thing. And you see the tail immediately start tightening around Kane's throat. And so they all freak out. They're like, oh, no, we can't do this. We're best to just leave him as is because he's alive right now. So we're best to leave him like this for now.
In great condition, too. They run the tests and they show that he is in pristine condition.
Right. There's nothing wrong with him except for the fact that he has an alien parasite attached to his face.
Nothing wrong with him at all except for an alien parasite.
Yeah, nothing wrong except for an alien parasite.
All right, Roger, when you say it like that.
But yeah, they can't get this thing off. Dallas, however, persists. He says, no, we need to remove this off of Kane's face. We need to get it off of him. So he orders Ash to take what looks like a soldering iron, but it's more like a drill or something. I don't know what exactly it is he takes.
It's like
weird
a futuristic
like thing. And
looks like a plasma tool almost.
Right, yeah. And he goes to cut off one of the fingers, and as soon as they cut through the skin, the creature shrieks and acid pours from its body onto the floor. We get like this yellow blood that pours down, and automatically we realize it's acid because it just starts eating through the entire hull. And that's when Dallas freaks out. He says, we don't need another porthole in this ship.
It's a great line, too.
Yeah, so like they go running around trying to stop it, and it eats through 2 floors before it eventually stops on the 3rd floor. And I love the part, too, where he's like asking, he takes Brett's pin and holds it up and like touches and plays in the acid for a minute, pulls it back down. He's like, okay, here, you can have this back now. He's like, I really want that back. Okay, great.
One thing about this scene I wanted to comment on, I don't feel like anyone on this ship at all gives this little bastard credit for just how ridiculously OP this thing is.
Oh, I know.
Like, they're like, oh, it bleeds acid that just drips all the way through our ship. Neat. And they move on. But, like, if that were me, I'd be like...
He's just a little persistent, that's all.
Yeah, I'd be like, let's just take this guy and just... I get it. He's one of our crew, but... Sorry, bro. Like,
let's just open up the...
Bye.
Like, yeah, I don't want this little thing on my ship. This is
you have,
wicked awful.
You have this alien life form who you now realize its blood is acid that ate through 2 layers of steel.
Yeah,
And so
and my point also is like retroactively thinking, you already broke quarantine, so everyone has to feel like I know when like I disobey something or do something that's intentionally against protocol, moving forward, that's on the back of my mind. I'm like, okay, I did something to the point that I'm at right now. I did something I wasn't supposed to do. So one of the things about this movie that one of the only flaws I think is how they have a blatant disregard.
they do.
For the fact that they are already so deep in protocol violation that they should just cut it right now. No one has the wherewithal to say, guys, I think it's time we move. we get this guy out of here.
Yeah.
Or either that, or it's like, well, we've already broken protocol, so we might as well keep going.
Yeah, they don't even like broach the subject. It's just
Yeah,
it's
we already broke
unspoken.
protocol to save him, so we're going to save him.
That's the thing. At the same time, too, we don't know the relationship that these guys have. Kane and Dallas might have been best friends and been on so many missions together. And
You're not wrong.
Dallas being the captain's like, I'm not going to just chuck him out into the vacuum of space. Like,
Yeah, and maybe they all took the he already spoke, kind of
Right.
approach. So
yeah,
it's a good point.
So we don't know, but we do know now this thing, as you said, they disregard it completely. But this thing is way more dangerous than they ever intended it to be. So some time like passes. It's like Dallas is in his little, it's not his office, like the captain's quarters, I guess, listening to like jazz music or something like that. Parker and Brett are fixing up the ship. I don't know what Lambert's doing, but Ripley and Ash then have a conversation. This is another thing I wanted to bring up here. Ripley goes to Ash and is like, when neither Kane nor Dallas are on the ship, I'm in command. Why did you disobey me and open up why did you disobey quarantine and open it up? Did you just like have complete disregard for quarantine? Did you just not listen to my orders? What was your thinking there? And I wanted to ask you guys, we know what his true intentions were, as we're going to talk about later on. But do you think this scene also kind of like relates to the fact that in the 70s there was a lot of sexism and how Ripley being a female, Ash did not want to take orders from a female?
I think that could be what they're trying to portray, as a bit of a red herring idea to what's really going on. I think absolutely, because it's a product of the time.
Right.
Yeah, and just to play off what Roger just said, I think that's much less of a theme that we pick up on nowadays because we live in a day where there's just as many females and in charge as there are males. And,
Right.
But in the 70s. In the 80s, that wasn't the case.
wasn't
In fact, until you brought it up, I didn't think about it that way, but absolutely.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I never considered that.
really?
But yeah, absolutely. I think that for that point in time, that very well may have been the case, but they did a very good job of not playing it off that way.
Right. They didn't acknowledge it like that. They made it. That's what I was saying. It's like an underlying sexism issue there, to where Ash was disobeying her order because she was a female. Although we do know his true intentions, but still. When you first watch it, that was just what I was thinking about while I was watching today. I was like, I feel like there's some kind of dichotomy here between Ash and Ripley, to where he didn't want to listen because she was a female.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, underlying, but as we find out, that's not the case.
So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up real quick. So like I said, some time passes. It's maybe an hour or so. We don't really know how much time
It
goes
doesn't
by.
seem like
They
it's a
didn't
long
really,
time, but
yeah.
Yeah, because before we know it, Ash is in the captain's quarters saying, hey, I need you right now. You need to come here to the infirmary as soon as you can. And so Dallas calls Ripley with him to the infirmary. They go in and they discover that the facehugger has detached itself from Kane's face. Kane's laying there unconscious, and the alien life form is nowhere to be found.
gone.
It's missing. So they enter the infirmary slowly and start looking around. And we get another great scene to where the facehugger just falls out of the ceiling onto Ripley's shoulder. She panics and kind of throws it. And as as Ash tests it, he realizes it's dead. It's just moving from its reflexes. It's not actually still alive. And so Ripley immediately, this is another one of those terms right here where we're like, Ripley wants to get rid of it. She says, okay, great, it's dead. Let's get it the fuck off the ship. Ash says no. This is a great scientific time right now. We could research this. We could learn so much about it. And so they all turn to Dallas. Dallas being the captain. And Dallas once again undermines Ripley and says it's Ash's decision. He's the scientist on board. Let's let him do what he wants to do with it. So we have yet another term here. I feel like that's, even if it's not the underlying sexism issue here, there's a lot of people not putting trust in Ripley, I feel like. just in general on this ship.
Yeah, and I think that since she's only the third in charge, I feel like there's that. That's why. That's how I took it. Was it's one versus all. Everyone's more concerned about the safety of this person, and they don't care about the other stuff. So when it comes to making a conscious decision of how they want to act, it flows from we're all focused on the safety of this one person. So natively, what comes after that is what is going on in first and second in command. Well, second in command is down.
Right.
First command says, well, it's a scientist's decision.
Exactly. So we're just going to disregard what she is saying. I think
Exactly.
it's less about ignoring her and more about not having the mental capacity to do anything but brush it off.
Right.
So
yeah, they keep the facehugger on board, and time passes. The ship gets fixed. They take off again, and soon after, Kane awakens. He comes. You good over there?
I'm choking on water currently.
So he wakes up. The whole crew comes around him and gathers around, and they're all talking to him, and they realize that he's got some kind of amnesia. Not a lot. He doesn't remember the last half of a day or whatever. He doesn't remember much from being on the planet. I almost said island again. I don't know why. I want to keep saying island.
it's because we messed you up.
You did, yeah.
I'll take responsibility.
This was the master plan. Tune in next week
What, with
for
you two coming
for the
on here?
island.
So yeah, Kane wakes up. He's got a little bit of amnesia, but for the most part, he seems completely fine. As you said before, he's in pristine condition, and now there's no alien life form on his face, Roger. So now he is good.
Exactly. No, nothing wrong at all.
Okay.
He's perfectly fine. He's gonna make it.
He's completely fine.
Movie over.
Yeah, movie ends there. They drive off into the sunset.
What about my boat? Never mind.
And so as they're conversing and everything, and they realize he's got a little bit of memory loss, Kane mentions that he's hungry. He wants to get some food into him, and Parker, who is eating currently while this conversation is going on, he's like, man, I go for some food too.
Comic relief.
And yeah, it's perfect. So they make this big meal, and my dumb ass, the first time I watched this as a kid, I thought it was Chinese food they were eating, and now I realize how dumb I am because they couldn't have Chinese food in space.
Definitely not.
I don't know what it is they're eating, but it looks delicious, whatever it is. What?
Why would you just they just went to the local Ken's and got Chinese food.
That's a great delivery guy right there. His dedication. I hope they tipped him
right?
well. They better have tipped that fucker real well.
Driver must have got $1 million.
Well, because whatever Kane is eating looks like noodles, and I don't know
Spaceship
why
DoorDash.
I thought it was Chinese food. Anyway, I shouldn't have even brought that up.
Taking Uber Eats to a new horizon.
Oh, no.
Oh, God.
The final frontier.
All right, so yes, as they're eating, we get the most iconic scene of this entire movie.
Franchise.
Probably the entire franchise, you're right,
I would
yeah.
go beyond franchise.
It's movies in general.
This
one
is
of
one of
the
the most
in
iconic
general.
scenes of cinema. Yeah.
Period.
Yep.
They're all having a great time, and as Roger said earlier, this once again, Scott does a fantastic job of luring you into a false sense of security. Everyone's happy, everyone's laughing. Kane is having a great time. He's sitting there talking to Parker. They're eating their Chinese noodles, and all of a sudden, he takes a drink and he starts choking. And they're like, "Oh, you okay? You doing all right?" And the choking becomes more and more intense.
I did that like 2 minutes
like
ago.
Roger was doing, yeah. But I'm
God, get out!
go away. And as he starts choking, he starts grabbing at his chest, and so everyone starts freaking out a little bit more and more. And Kane
just a heart
stands up.
attack.
Kane stands up, lays back against the table, and everyone's gathered around him. And all of a sudden, he starts writhing, and then blood spurts from his chest. And then another second passes.
Really bad heart attack.
And then another second passes, and a creature bursts from his chest. Here we have the iconic chest burster. And I was talking to Mike about this earlier. I love this scene so much. First of all, just because it's a fantastic scene, but also, did you know the way the scene was shot, no one except for John Hurt knew about the chest burster. All the other actors were in the dark on it. Ridley Scott didn't want anyone to know about it, so their reactions were genuine because he says this is one of the most well-acted scenes in all of cinema.
It's because it was.
It wasn't even acted. They were being sincere.
They just got blood squirted all over them. And
Yeah. I think they knew there was going to be an alien, but I don't think they knew it was going to be like that. Because obviously they knew, because Ash continues going on saying, don't let it get away because it pops out of his chest and runs off. But I don't think they knew it was going to pop out of his chest.
If you think about it, it's kind of the most comical thing that could happen. This little alien jump on out and run away. He just scurries off.
Honestly, the way he runs away, yeah, you're right. It looks like he's just on like a little RC car, just.
The reason I think they did it like that is because I thought the same thing. I was like, it looks so ridiculous, like just the way its head is up and like all that. But imagine if it had been like the way that its arms and legs were. If it had attempted to run like a cat or something. It just would have looked so ridiculous.
It would have.
So,
and that's another thing too about this movie that's great, because if you look at the actual like xenomorph alien when it's an adult, if you look at it too much, it does look like a man in a suit, like in a costume, and that's why Ridley Scott filmed it the way he did. There's so many dramatic close-ups of the alien, so many like shots of it to where it's in the dark, because he didn't want people to look at it and be like, "That's a man in a suit."
You
That's
really
very
get
obvious.
very few full body shots of the xenomorph.
You don't see it in full body until pretty much the end.
yeah.
When he
No,
gets
you
blown
don't.
out the wind. Yeah.
Well, you kind of do there shortly after this in a scene with Ash, but it's not. It's a very short shot of it.
yeah. You don't see the whole lot, and that's kind of just like I don't want to keep branching off on different movies, but again, this movie's so iconic it stems into different movies.
Right.
It's just like with Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy Krueger, he is the main villain in that movie, but he only has 16 minutes of screen time. It's the whole idea of that not seeing the creature makes it more scary than actually seeing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, something to point out, as you will come to find out in the Alien universe, he said it looks like a man in a suit. I feel like when this movie came out, that was a very valid point. Mm-hmm. But when you come to expand on the whole universe, the xenomorphs take genetic DNA and kind of adapt it to how they evolve. So whenever this being the second form, it being like this small creature, when it gets bigger, it looks like a man in a suit. It's because xenomorphs, they have their alien structure, but they take form of whatever creature that they inhabit and bust out of.
Right.
So it lends credence to the fact that it could look like a man in a suit to me. I didn't think too much into that, but
I didn't either, but it makes sense.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to bring that up because that was an issue that I know Ridley Scott had with filming the movie. He was like, I don't want people and audiences to think this looks like a man in a suit.
No, I think it's great because I think this is one of the first movies that they really used dark to their advantage for one reason, but it spawned a generation of horror movies utilizing darkness and a lack of a villain to turn a regular horror movie into a psychological horror movie.
Exactly. So. And that right here too, this is a great part as well because I don't know if this happened before or after Kane died, but Ripley talks to, I think it's after, she blocks off Dallas in the hallway and won't let him go through, and she says, I don't trust Ash. We need to not listen to what he's saying. And Dallas says, I don't trust anyone. And so that kind of leads into the whole psychological aspect of this whole thing to where if your captain doesn't even trust his own crew, then you're going to start having infighting here soon, which happens. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah, there's some disparity that can cause.
So yes, this is Kane's death scene. And to describe the chest burster for y'all, because I tried to describe the face hugger, it's just a smaller version of the xenomorph. Just Google what the xenomorph looks like, except it's not metallic green. It's like pink.
Yeah.
It looks like the face hugger's collar, but not because it's all bloody. It's covered in blood and mucus and viscera. So Kane has been killed. They end up... Well, first of all, everyone freaks out because they need to find the alien. They're like, we need to find out where he went to. But before they find the hunt, they cast Kane's body out into space, give him his kind of like final regards, and eject him out into space. And then decide to break up into two teams. Our teams are Ash, Dallas, and Lambert, and Ripley, Parker, and Brett. We don't really see a whole lot with Dallas's party. We see more Ripley, Parker, and Brett as they venture through. Ash has designed, in a short amount of time, amazingly, a machine that will make a sound whenever motion is detected.
Yep.
And it looks like an air pump.
It does. It looks like an air mattress, like blow up machine. Mm-hmm. Also, one thing I wanted to point out, I feel like this is the point in the movie where you start to hone in on the fact that Ripley is the main character.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, for
like
sure.
right here. So
Yeah, this is where the whole dichotomy changes of okay, Kane's no longer our main guy. Ripley is now our person. And so they're armed with nets, a cattle prod type thing, and their little motion detector. And so Ripley, Brett, and Parker venture off through the Nostromo looking for this alien. And along the way, they find motion inside one of the lockers, and I feel like it's the bottom level of the ship. I think they're in.
Yeah, I think so.
It's somewhere like that. And they go to open the locker and get the nail ready. And as they open it, out pops Jonesy, our resident cat.
Shit, I thought for a second it was a xenomorph.
Yeah, I know, right? And that's something I guess we can bring this up now because I had this at the very end because I thought about this towards the end because it happens more than just once. The cat's whole character. Let's talk about this cat for a second. Is this cat solely in this movie to add tension, or do you think there's an actual reason for this cat to be here?
Xenomorph's afraid of the cat,
Is that canon?
in my opinion.
Okay.
So
When do you see the xenomorph go after the cat at any point?
Well, there's that part of the end when he's just looking at him in his cage.
Yeah, but he doesn't take action because he's afraid.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think it's afraid. I think it's a thematic, like, comfort thing for the fact that the creature that's in the movie that's not the xenomorph, so the cat, I think that they put it in there because it survives. And not to spoil anything, but the cat survives.
Right.
And I think that they did that because they wanted to leave the audience kind of hanging on the fact that, this is, at this point in the movie, everyone knows it's a horror movie. Everyone knows it's what the elements of the movie are. So having a comfort creature, because other than that, there really isn't anything because the humor kind of stops here. Mm-hmm. Everything else is all about death.
It's very, it moves very quickly from here on out.
So, right. And I think it also is for the end game of the movie. And if you can remind me, because there's a good chance I'll forget once we get to the end, I think there's a reason for the cat that I will bring up then. I just don't want to spoil the ending.
You can't kill the cat. This isn't Cannibal Holocaust.
Well, there's more movies than just that where animals die, but okay. That's a weird...
Well, I mean, they actually killed animals for real in that movie, though. So.
Yeah, but not a cat.
Not a cat, but like they killed real animals.
Right.
Well, I'm getting depressed. Can we move on now?
But no, I wanted to mention what you said. It's a comfort thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not an astronaut. You guys aren't astronauts. If anyone listening to this works for NASA or anything, let us know. Do they actually? Have they ever sent a comfort animal into space? Like I know they sent a monkey into space before.
They send
but I meant like,
into
do
space.
they send with the astronauts? They send animals with them.
Yeah, they go. So they're there. Obviously, they're for scientific reasons, but they have comfort items and creatures that they send. They can send into space as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I don't think it's of any. Now, I'll talk about it when we get to the movie. I don't want to ruin anything.
All right. So yeah, but no, I just wanted to bring that up because I believe the cat's there solely for tension, but I want to hear what you have to say at the end of the movie. So, the cat jumps out of the locker. And Parker says to Brett, you need to go catch the cat because if it's just wandering around the ship, this thing could go off at any moment. The motion sensor could go off at any moment. And we need to be like owned in on the alien. So Brett goes off to go catch the cat. And we get this great scene of him walking around just going, here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Pss, 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 come here, Jonesy. I feel like Jonesy has said more than anything else in this movie. Because he goes around wandering for Jones, and then also Ripley does at the end of the movie.
Well, I think that goes to further the point that, one, I will make at the end, but two, it furthers your point. The cat is a comfort creature for everyone, and yet the one thing it does is it centralizes the group. So one thing that everyone has is a comfort item from home, but in this movie, the cat serves as the thing that can bring them together, because whether they're by themselves or on the ship, or whether there's 50 people there, everyone loves the cat because it's a reminder of Earth, it's a reminder of things that are human, and a reminder of domestication, things of that nature. So the cat's one thing that kind of centralizes them. So it doesn't surprise me you hear that name a lot.
Right.
Can you imagine being that guy who got up, went to the bathroom when the cat was introduced in the film and came back, and then you see him going around and saying, here, kitty, 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 thinking, why are they calling that alien kitty?
I don't understand what you just said. I legit have no idea what you just said.
He brought up a point to, if you were watching this in the movie theater, you got up to go pee when the cat was introduced, and you come back not knowing there's a cat And he says that this
Okay,
guy's walking around
okay.
calling the alien kitty. Although, to be fair, that would be funny, I feel like.
I
Be
think
like
hilarious.
you're trying
Yeah.
to find this alien, you're like, hey, kitty, 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 come here, kitty, kitty. But anyway, we all digress. Brett's looking for the cat. And while he's looking for the cat, he eventually finds him in, I don't know what room of the ship he's in, but it's this room that has a ton of condensation dripping down because we almost have this
The
like
boiler room.
we have almost like this euphoric moment for Brett where he's just standing in the water as letting it drip over him. But that euphoric moment quickly turns when we see a full-grown xenomorph standing behind him, and he turns around and we get another iconic scene of this film where the xenomorph snarls and there's just water pouring down this thing's face. I love this shot.
Yeah, it's
So good.
Cinematography was ahead of its time in this
Yeah.
movie, for sure.
I was just getting ready to say that 100%. It's beautiful.
And so we got it's beautifully horrifying is what it is, because you have this snarling alien life form with water pouring down it, and its second set of teeth essentially extend out and shoot Brett in the face and kill him, and he gets taken up into the rafters pretty much off screen. And this is another point I want to talk about the cinematography. I love this scene not only for that shot, for Brett's death, but also for what happens afterwards. You see Brett dying through the eyes of Jones. You see him dying through Jones's, like the cat's eyes. And I love it because it's like the split there between, it's almost like relaying this whole idea of like animalistic tendencies here. We're no longer, you're talking about how the cat's relevant of Earth or whatever like that. It's not really the case anymore. Now we just have no more Earth, no more space. It's just we're breaking everything down. We're not human. We're animals again.
So I had actually something to say specifically about that as well in relation to how it is a comfort. I do believe that it still represents that, but the fact that I feel like specifically because the cat is a comfort creature, showing it die and be entirely apathetic, as cats normally are. Fuck cats, I hate cats.
Especially
But
mine.
as he's not wrong, but as cats normally are, watching him die from the cat's eyes and seeing that, it shows that at that point there is no further comfort to be found in this film.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the point that was attempted at portrayal here. So the fact that we're getting that out of this cat, or we're getting that specific scene, I don't know. I feel like it speaks volumes.
Oh,
So.
absolutely, yeah. So Brett is then killed, and I was watching this and I don't remember like seeing or hearing anything happen, but all of a sudden Ripley and Parker are back in the main hub of everything and are just talking about how they watched Brett get taken into the rafters, but they didn't see him get taken up. They just all of a sudden knew he got taken in the air ducts all of a sudden. I don't yeah. That's another one of those continuity things right there that I was just kind of like, they never saw that. He was alone. Like, yeah, you could know he's dead, but I don't know.
We could also go into the fact that, how this xenomorph grew 26 times its own size
In like 20
like,
minutes.
yeah,
Yeah.
without
No time
eating
at all.
without eating at all.
Right.
Like I don't understand that dynamic either, but
But then again, it's an
horror
alien
movie's
life
gonna
form.
horror movie.
Horror movie gonna horror. So, okay, but yeah. So now they
Aliens.
realize, what'd you say?
Aliens.
Aliens. It's a History Channel meme. It's what I'm emulating in person with my hands. For those of you who-
I don't think you had to explain that.
Yeah.
I think everyone got that one.
So after some heated discussion, the crew decides the alien has found its home inside the air ducts. And so what they need to do is kind of flush this thing out. They discuss the fact that turning up the temperature might help because they mentioned earlier that the alien planet they found it on was like ice cold. It was like below zero cold. So they figure if they turn the heat up in the ship, it might help flush this thing out. Excuse me. And so Dallas, being the man in charge of the ship, decides he's going to be the one to crawl into the air ducts with a flamethrower and try to flush this thing out. And so Dallas ascends into the air ducts and he starts crawling through it. He orders Ripley to close the ducts behind him because he's pretty much saying, if I die, I don't want this thing getting out of the air ducts. And so
What a G.
I know, right?
What a real G.
And so he crawls into the air ducts, he's going through, and sure enough, he goes to turn a corner, and there's the xenomorph, and he gets killed off screen, and probably one of the worst deaths of this film, I believe. I feel like Dallas should have had a cooler death.
He gets
captain. He
he gets the big alien hug.
He does get a big hug,
This thing
yeah.
comes out of the darkness with his hands extended like it's gonna hug him, and then he just He's dead. He's gone.
Like, because if we talk about the deaths up to this point so far, you've got Kane killed by chestburster, Brett killed by the extractable set of teeth, and then Dallas, our captain, killed by alien hug.
Yeah.
Off screen.
Death via alien
Death
hug.
via alien hug. So I don't know.
There are worse ways to die.
There
I mean,
are.
if you're gonna get killed by something, might as well get killed by love.
So with Dallas dead, this now finally, Ripley is in charge. She is now ascended into first in command. And so she decides she's going to go into the captain's chambers and try to figure out what to do next.
Can I point something out here?
Yeah.
For those of you who didn't watch the movie that are listening to this, we've talked about how we've mentioned it a few times how Ripley has not necessarily waiting for her chance, but we've talked about how she's been ignored for her position, things of that nature. By no means is she excited about being in charge right now. This isn't because just by the way you said that, not that you implied this, but I have thought of maybe someone thought that she was excited about the fact she was in charge now.
No.
Definitely
That's not at all the case here. She's empathetic, but she also rises to the challenge. Like she is a grade A superior in this situation.
And she
does a
cracks
great
down
job.
hard on this because as soon as they find Dallas dead, Lambert again freaks out and says we should just get on our escape shuttle and blow this ship up. We should just get off here. And Ripley says we can't do that. There's 4 of us. That shuttle only holds 3. So she says we need to figure out a way to do this without exploding the whole ship. So
LOL.
So yeah, Ripley now in charge and has access to Mother. She goes into the captain's quarters where she starts digging around a little bit and discovers the big plot twist here that we've been leading up to this entire time.
Which, if you don't remember, Mother is like the command.
She's the command control,
So
So like the ship's computer system, yeah. She discovers that they were actually sent on this mission to discover alien life form and bring back the alien life form, the entire crew being expendable. And that was actually Ash's duty to do so. So he was actually the one, and that's why he opened the doors up to bring them back on for the whole quarantine thing. That's why he's been ignoring Ripley the entire time. That's why he wants to keep the face hugger alien, to study it, because his mission was to bring back life forms and basically fuck the rest of the crew in so doing so.
Yep.
So, and I love this scene too because Ripley figures that out and it cuts back to her and Ash is right there beside her. Like, how does she not hear him enter the chamber? I don't know how.
Horror movie's gonna horror.
Yeah, you're right. It's gonna horror movie
But
on a
also,
horror.
there's likely a shock factor there. Like okay, well, not only do they lie to us, but we're expendable. That's shocking. And also, everyone's dead because of this. Oh, and also, I've been right this whole time. Oh, and also, this dude's trying to fucking kill us. Like, there's a lot to be like just awestruck about there.
Right. So yes, Ash appears beside Ripley. She obviously is like, what the hell is going on here? I just read what is actually happening. And so Ash, being the gentleman he is, decides to offer Ripley an easy way out to try to kill her himself.
Ian home for nothing. All right.
So Ash he yanks her by her hair, ripping her hair out, and then yeets her across the room.
I spoke too soon.
He chucks her across the room, and she lands on like one of the beds. I don't know, because there's like porn on the wall. Did you notice? Have you ever
I
noticed
didn't see that. No.
There's
Parker's been a good
I
time.
did not notice it.
it's like I think it honestly is one of the engineers' rooms or something like that, because there's a bunch of like porno behind her on the wall.
I mean,
Like Playboy.
to be honest,
yeah.
I mean, it's creating an atmosphere. People
I know,
are in
yeah.
space forever. You know, it's just it adds to the scenery. It really does.
Yeah. So they try fighting, and he knocks Ripley out, and he goes to roll up some of the magazines and goes to shove it down her throat to like suffocate her. Whenever Parker and Lambert burst in the room, see him doing this, and Parker takes an oxygen tank, I'm assuming is what it is,
It looks
and beats Ash with it, hits him twice, and on the second hit, it decapitates Ash. And oh no, second twist, Ash is an android.
Oh shit. That's blood's white.
That's like thinking about this movie, watching it now, I was just like, oh, that's weird. But like not only we all knew he was like a science officer, so whenever they unveiled the fact that like he was there to discover alien life, it made sense.
Right.
Like it completely jives with everything that happened. But the fact that he's an android, it goes, oh, he has a purpose and he can't deviate from
Nope.
that. There's no humanity there.
And that's why he doesn't without any kind of remorse.
Exactly. He's not just a shitty human being. He's a robot.
He's been programmed to do this thing. Yes.
Exactly. So it creates that's what I love about this movie so much. It creates a dynamic in how the characters react to this, to where when they find out he's a robot, there's like it's like an unspoken like tension, and they feel let down by it because it's like, we want you to pay for the things
For
that
the
you
betrayal
did,
that you've done, yeah.
but you just can't. But that is not mentioned at all in the movie. But it's so subtle on their faces, and I fucking love the acting in this scene.
Yeah, I love Parker's whole reaction to where like he's a robot. Ash is a goddamn robot.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I like I said, I think it's just like the whole aura and like the I don't know how the betrayal that they all are putting off here with that whole thing being the vibe. And then on top of all that, like I said, leeching back to the fact that he could not control his actions. They want to take more action against him, but it's like they just beheaded him, but it's like, and he's still not dead. That's the thing. Like, he's a robot and they beheaded him. But the way that, just to go into the scene a little bit more, the androids in these movies and in the other movies, they're not like regular robots. There's not like there's not
no
cogs and gears inside of them. They're put together like humans, and they have like this milky white like blood, but they still function until the lack of that blood. So they're less android and more synthetic human.
They're very much more synthetic human. Like, I don't want to. It's not like Westworld either, because Westworld's still more cogs and gears than.
Nah, it looks like they have skin and flesh, and they have like a
sacks inside them. Yeah.
Yeah, little like milk sacks, and like they have veins, but like one central. I don't know. It's very strange. Point being, though, Ash is a robot, and there's nothing he could do to deny his directive. Mm-hmm. But there again, I'm referencing more things in the Alien universe later on in the other Alien movies, and Prometheus and Covenant. It goes to show that there can be a little sway in that. So it just goes, I don't know. There's a variation there. I talked about how well they stuck to it, and now they're deviating from it a little bit.
So upon realizing that Ash is an android, and knowing now that his plan all along was to bring back alien life form, they want to reactivate his head so that they can ask him how to kill this thing. Because surely he has to have some kind of an idea how to kill it, how to get rid of this alien. And so this is probably, I don't want to say the most analytical scene we could get into. Excuse me, but it's definitely one of the most important scenes in the whole movie, because as they reanimate his head, and I love the way it's shot too, by the way, because it's very obviously a like puppet at first, and then it cuts away. And right back into, and now you all of a sudden have Ian Holm actually like have his head through a table, and it's wonderfully shot,
especially for 79.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
A lot of this movie holds up to this day.
It really does.
Like, a lot of the special effects still look good to this day.
And I say that whenever you guys rewatch it, did you rewatch the 4K version?
I did not. I watched
the
HDMI
10, just the
streaming.
HD.
It looks so good. Like, it literally looks like it was shot yesterday. Like,
really?
You're like just clarifying your point.
Next time I watch it, I'll definitely.
It looks
4K
stellar.
version now.
Yeah. So they bring
Interstellar.
Ash's head back just to ask it questions, and now he talks in like a robotic voice, so it's very obvious that he's an android at this point. They kind of ask him, like, not only how did they kill it, but also why necessarily did they want this alien? Why would they want to bring him back? And he responds in a way it's as perfect as a robot could give you. He says this alien is the perfect organism. It lives solely on animalistic instincts. It has no morals. It has no compassion. It has nothing like that. It's just living for survival.
Like a bear.
Yeah. And so
What the fuck, Roger?
I just have ignored him half the time, honestly. And so he's digging into this like whole perfect organism thing. And so I just wanted to ask your all's thoughts on this whole thing. Like, why why is it ironic, I think, that an android gives a speech about finding a perfect organism?
I think up to this
A synthetic organism, I should say.
I think there's
not
two
synthetic,
sides.
but real.
I can't talk tonight. I think there's two sides to it. So in the beginning, that is how you see Ash. As he starts to present himself and his character becomes more known, he's out for himself and he has like an animalistic desire to just do what he feels is the right situation. And then you find out that he is an android and it changes entirely your perspective of him. So on the exact opposite side of the coin, you get he has no instinct. He doesn't have that ability. Yet the way that they act is driven to feel that exact same way. So, or to mimic that exact same way. So I feel as if the mission was to go out and to find alien life, but the way that the thematic elements of this movie jive right here, it almost lends you to think that they knew that the perfect specimen existed and they sent them to find that exact creature. Because as, again, referencing Alien or Prometheus and Alien Covenant, as you come to find out, these synthetics are not perfect. They have the tendency to deviate from normal programming.
Right.
So they had to program this synthetic in a way to make it more animalistic in nature to mimic that specific type of desire or animalistic nature. Because the way that Ash reacts, I think that whenever they find that the perfect organism, the way that they accept it, for the humans on the ship accept it, I feel like they have an easier time accepting it because of the way Ash mimics his programming for that particular reasoning. So I thought the movie was very well done. That's why I glorify this writer so hard for this movie.
That makes sense.
So
that totally is I couldn't say it better myself.
So thank you, Roger. I appreciate that.
I just wanted to ask you all's insight because I know that scene is very important.
It is
to discussing not only just this film, but it also plays into the whole franchise. Exactly like what you just brought up. So I wanted to bring that whole up. I just find it so it's perfectly paradoxical that a robot is the one who brings up the whole idea of a perfect organism. And I love that whole aspect of it. So
yeah, you could take that as very surface level and just say that's what he was programmed to do. He was programmed to find that. But how would he know what a perfect organism is if they weren't programmed with the ability to think for themselves? And the entire series goes to play on that element. And I feel like that's likely the scene. And kudos for you for finding that and asking that question because that's huge. I feel like the entire theme of the rest of the movies plays off that particular statement he makes. So,
and not only to mention just that part, but also the last thing Ash says is he taunts them about their chance of survival. He says, "I'm not going to try to tell you what your odds are of getting out of here alive," because he knows that this thing that they have on the ship is, like as he recalls it, the perfect organism. He knows it's perfect for hunting, it's perfect for stalking its prey. And he knows they really have no chance of getting off this ship alive. And so he kind of taunts them. They shut him down. And then just for good measure, like you said earlier, Parker wants a little bit of retribution. He incinerates him.
Yep.
And that's the end of Ash. He turns into Ash.
Oh, shit. He said the thing. I want to stay here. I know like the whole point of the show is the Final Girl podcast. Once again, Ripley rises to the challenge right here. They waste no time in doing what they need to do next.
Right. So yeah, they cut off the power. And immediately, now that there's down to 3, Ripley realizes, okay, your plan earlier, Lambert, about blowing the ship up doesn't sound so bad all of a sudden. Let's go ahead. We'll get shit in order to do that. So while Ripley, she goes to do something. I don't remember what it is she goes to do, but she spends most of her time looking for Jones. Again, we're back looking for the cat here, while Parker and Lambert go get supplies down in like the basement or the bottom level of the ship. But while Ripley's looking for the cat, Parker and Lambert are getting supplies, and we get another fantastic scene. It's honestly, I don't want to say this is like the saddest scene of the movie, but it's honestly probably the most humanistic scene, I guess I would say. because I don't want to play Lambert off to be like a little bitch the entire film, because honestly, she does have more to her than just being scared. But if you were to come face to face with this alien, I'd be shitting my pants too.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And she plays it perfectly because when they're down getting supplies, the alien appears and stands in front of Lambert and like blocks her into a corner. And she's so terrified she can't move. Like, she physically can't move. Not only just because she can't move, she's terrified, but it's blocking her exit pretty much. And Parker's begging her to move out of the way because he wants to incinerate it. And before he gets a chance to do anything, he gets the same treatment Brett got. He gets the mouth through the face.
Mouth knife.
Mouth knife, yeah. And we get almost I don't want to say it's sexual, but it's an almost sexual, it's kind of it's very Evil Dead-ish when it comes to the tree scene
Yeah.
of the alien's tail winding up Lambert's leg, and then she screams and cuts away, and that's like her death is off screen.
I think this is where the mimicry of horror it does come into play. I think it's very fitting for you to say that. One, yes, it's very sexual, and I think that's in there because in the rest of the movie, there's other women on the ship. There's women and men. Sure, there might be underlying sexual tension, but they don't talk about it.
They don't.
It's nothing there.
Nothing in this film is done on purpose to be sexual.
Yep.
Like,
And I think the reason they put it in there is because they harken back to that animalistic nature and the fact that these things have human DNA in them. There's a piece of it that where they wanted to reference the fact that although yes, the intentions here are to kill it, potentially eat it, or just hunt it, whatever, but animalistic nature would imply with human DNA that there's a sexual drive that drives a lot of humanity. If you look back through all of history and art, sex drives everything. So I think that was specifically the reason that scene was put in there.
And not to mention too, the way you said that this creature takes DNA from its host. So it has taken Kane's DNA and made it itself. So we don't know Kane and Lambert's relationship. We don't know what was going on between them.
I never thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It just brings into consideration too that potentially there was something going on maybe between Kane and Lambert, and this alien, through having Kane's DNA, senses that a little bit before. Obviously, it's going to kill her, but like it still has that humanistic side to it, to where
I'm gonna put my tail in her butt first. It's
Yeah.
fine. No, I'm sorry. No, but just to give some scenery, that's kind of what it does. It like winds up her,
runs up her leg, around her.
Yep.
And then, like I said, she screams, it cuts away. Meanwhile, while they're dying, Ripley has found Jones, put him safely in his bunk. Don't worry, the cat's fine. Put him safely in his little space carrier. And so she goes down. She goes down to find Lambert's leg hanging from the rafters, and another great shot because it shows Lambert's leg just hanging there and Parker hunched over behind her dead. And again, the water's dripping down. I think it's the same place Brett died and is where they're at because there's still water dripping down. This is a very wet movie. It's like The Lighthouse all over again.
Oh, God.
And so, yeah, she finds their bodies. And so now she's in pure survival mode at this point. She is the last alive. She needs to get shit done. So she immediately goes back to the captain's quarters and activates the self-destruct sequence. And I love how this thing says you have T-minus 10 minutes before the ship explodes and T-minus 5 minutes to deactivate the self-activation. Like, if you mess this up and you're like, oh no, I didn't mean to blow up the whole ship, you only got 5 minutes to say no.
I think it's great design, personally. Like, when they wrote this, like, because I always think about that in any movie where there's self-destruct, it's like, well, can they turn it off? There's no big cancel. There's never a big cancel button below that. But all these movies where that happens could have taken inspiration from the movie that was, one, way better than all those, Alien, and two, this, like, I just thought that was a great design. And the fact that, one, obviously there was a use for it here in a few minutes.
Right.
But two, it's just like, the moviegoer, when I'm watching this, I'm just like, why does nobody else think to do that? That should be basic design.
Yeah. But here, I want to ask you another question here in just a second, okay? So Ripley starts the self-destruct, and she gets all of her stuff. She gets her flamethrower. She's looking like a total badass, and she goes to get on the space shuttle, the one to get off the Nostromo, and the alien is in her way. So she hides from it, and she goes back because she's realizing there's no way to get to the shuttle now because the alien's in her way. So she has to deactivate the explosion. Well, she's going to die.
It's a great scene, by
right.
the way.
It's a great tension scene because she gets back, and it's like, I think 4 minutes, 1 minute's left till the turn off time is done. And she deactivates it right as it hits 5 minutes. And this is a wonderful scene because Mother says it's too late to turn off the alarm.
Bitch.
And she screams, "You bitch, I turned it off," and everything. And I wanted to ask, do you think, again, like this is programming, there was no actual turn off? Like, do you think this was made to once it was turned on, there was no turning it off again because they wanted the crew, they didn't want them to die, but they were expendable. Their whole mission, whoever sent them into space, their whole mission was to get this alien life form back to Earth.
I don't think there was. Or I'm sorry, what I'm trying to say is I don't think that.
You don't think Mother was programmed to do that?
No, because I think Mother was programmed to make sure that alien life form gets back no matter what. And if yourself gonna explode that ship, that ain't happening.
Okay.
So I don't think that's the case here.
And potentially, yes. And I agree with Roger for the most part. I do. However, I think that it's a little bit of reverse psychology that is implied here. The fact that they would want it to be, if it was activated and the sole purpose was to make the crew expendable, and the crew tried to turn it off, but maybe they didn't try to turn it off and there was something else that did. I think that on I don't know how to say this. On the reverse side of it, Roger's implying maybe just due to the fact that there is a button to turn it off, that is a crew initiative. And by the fact that the crew here is expendable, i.e. doesn't matter what they think, maybe by the fact that they would try to turn that off or they're given the option to do so, it's null and void when it comes to the fact that maybe the aliens on the ship, maybe there's something that happened with the android guy.
Right, Ash.
Ash, yeah.
And that's what I was going to pose here. I was going to say, so let's think about it this way, though. We know, as the audience, we know Ripley's the last one alive. But that wasn't supposed to be the case. Ash was not supposed to die. So thinking about it from a programmer standpoint, if you knew the whole crew could possibly be dead and it was just Ash left alive, he could get that alien onto the escape ship and blow the Nostromo up. Why would there need to be a failsafe on that explosive?
Right. Also, to that point, you have to be so far in charge to get in to talk to Mother. Yet Ash casually strolled into Mother whenever she was Ripley first went and sat down in there.
Right.
So hence proving that he had access to that computer the entire time. So he could have made and changed anything he wanted to at any point.
So I just wanted to raise that point to y'all and think, do you think that there's
a good discussion topic?
Yeah. Do you think there was a failsafe or not?
There's been a lot more discussion in this film than I thought there would be already. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I did a lot of research on this one, so
You're a fantastic host.
hey, thank you. So moving on, the explosion's set to happen. She now has 5 minutes to get all of the stuff and get off the ship, and she has to just suck it up and face the alien. And this is another moment you mentioned earlier. She does a great job of taking that responsibility and just taking it head on. She says, "Okay, this is it. I'm either going to die by explosion or die by alien, or I can somehow get off the ship."
Yeah. I'm dead either way, so
Yeah.
let's fucking go. Like, she steps up again.
What a badass.
And so she does that. She goes, and as she gets to the escape pod, we realize there's no alien anymore. So Ripley kind of looks around and she sees this as a moment of grace. She goes into the escape pod and she gets off the Nostromo in just enough time to watch it explode in the distance behind her. And this is one of the moments I feel like the CGI or whatever doesn't hold up, like the special effects don't hold up. It looks a little cheesy.
The
It's worse than Star Wars, which came out 2 years earlier. I mean,
It's a little cheesy, but I mean, I'll take it.
and it explodes 3 times.
It does explode 3 times, but I figure that to be different hulls of
yeah,
the
yeah.
thing exploding. So like 1, 2, 3. So
And we're safe at last.
right, and we are safe at last. So Ripley here now on the escape pod. She's last alone. She settles Jonesy into his little stasis pod, and he's all good to go. And then as she is preparing herself for her stasis pod, she goes over to, I don't remember what she goes over to switch on or turn. I think she's just preparing the pod.
she's going to open the pod up.
Yeah. And we see a tail flop out from where she's at. And I love that scene because when you first watch it, you don't notice the alien, but when you watch it the second time,
You can see it.
you can see it completely sitting right there in front of her. And I love that because you're just like, oh shit, it's right there.
Hey, can we just mention at this point, she looks gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, she has the entire movie.
Well, just even more so at this point.
So she sees the alien, and she panics, but she holds her composure, and that's what I love about this is that she's obviously in a state of panic, but she holds her composure completely, and she goes into a closet and slowly slips on a spacesuit. Like she's preparing herself for this. She's getting ready. She walks over slowly, straps herself in, and as soon as she does that, she turns on a switch that activates the air ducts, and it flushes the alien out of its little cubby hole it's hiding in. And the second it's out and open in the air, she bursts open the doors, which depressurizes the entire ship and flings it out of the cabin, and it's like holding onto the door handles and trying to claw its way back in when she launches a fucking harpoon gun.
That was great.
At it and blasts it out into space, and the door shuts back, catching the gun. So it's like basically the ship's taking off and the alien's floating around behind it, like, attached to the harpoon gun, and it tries to go up through one of the thrusters. And again, more Ripley badassery. She flips on the thruster and completely incinerates this xenomorph and just kills it. And this kind of brings about the end of the film to where she has now finally, defeated the alien. She's finally safe. And so she sits down in her captain's chair and makes a final statement about how this is Ellen Ripley. I am the last survivor of the Nostromo. I have 6 weeks left, as you said, to return to Earth. And like this is like her final message. And then it cuts to her sleeping in her stasis pod, and the movie rolls credits. So a few things before we wrap up this, though. I have a few, like I said, I watched this on Amazon. There's a lot of notes in the X-ray version on Amazon to like talk about different things. The first one I want to bring up is that Dan O'Bannon did not want to do the cliche Final Girl, but ironically it ended up being a very much Final Girl film. For sure. He wanted to avoid that whole cliche, to where one person's left alive to face the kill at the climax, which later referred to as the Final Girl phenomena. But ironically, Ripley ended up being that Final Girl, but she was just much more stronger and offset than the rest of the Final Girl cliches are. So I just found that note hilarious because I was like, he wanted to avoid the whole Final Girl thing, but then it ended up having that.
Well, fuck you. You're on this podcast anyway, bro.
Hey. And then another thing I wanted to ask, this goes back to the casting. We're kind of going back here a little bit. So when it came down to casting the role of Ripley, ultimately, oh shoot, what's her name? Cartwright, the girl who played Lambert, she wanted the role of Ripley, and Sigourney Weaver wanted Lambert's role. So when they auditioned originally, Veronica Cartwright auditioned for Ripley, and Sigourney Weaver auditioned for Lambert because Lambert was written to be the comic relief. She was written to be funny and witty and everything. But ultimately, we know Ellen Ripley was cast as Sigourney Weaver, and Veronica Cartwright got cast as Lambert. How do you think the dynamic of this film would have changed if those actresses were cast in the original roles they wanted?
Lambert kind of seemed just there through the entire movie, and I don't want to say that's in any way a reflection on Veronica Cartwright as an actress, but just me personally, I have not seen her really in anything else that I can think of off the top of my head. So my only opinion of her comes from this, and she's very much a background character. And I just can't see her pulling off the Ellen Ripley role at the same level that Sigourney Weaver did, whereas I've seen Sigourney Weaver in several other things. And based on everything else I've seen her in, like, she's perfect for that role.
Right.
I cannot envision anybody else playing Ripley.
So your whole take on this is that it would have weakened the movie.
I think it would have.
Michael?
And I agree with that, but I'll make an additional statement. One, there's nothing in this movie that makes me not trust Ridley Scott and that other the guys who
In casting, yeah.
I think one, it would have cheapened the movie for sure. And we have to take into consideration that this was Sigourney Weaver's breakout film.
Right.
She probably didn't go for lead role because she didn't think she could get it. Mm-hmm. So they're taking that into account. The main thing, though, that we have, what's her name? Cartwright?
Veronica Cartwright.
Okay, so the one thing I think we have to take into consideration here is with Veronica Cartwright, there's no way she would have looked as good in a tank top and underwear. So we have to take that into account when considering our options here.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, Veronica Cartwright. You're a beautiful woman in your own right, but you're no Sigourney Weaver.
All right. Also, I just want to touch on this real quick. Another thing I noticed, the original screenplay title of this was called Star Beast, and it got changed to Alien after O'Bannon realized how many times they said alien in the script. How do you think that would have changed the movie that way if it had been called Star Beast?
So I'll take this one first, Roger.
Yeah, go ahead.
So obviously there's no way it would have cheapened the film. The film would have been great.
Right.
But I feel like the initial uptake of the movie would have been severely lackluster. Mm-hmm. Coming after Star Wars, maybe that was the reason for the original name of Star Beast. They kind of wanted to play off that success. But I have a hard time thinking that even 30-some years ago, that wouldn't have been considered a joke.
Oh, I know, right?
It's pretty bad.
It's a pretty bad name.
I feel like that would have had poor reception, and it really would have killed this movie. Instead of being the amazing horror classic it is, it may. I mean, honestly, something like that can really force you into cult classic territory.
It can.
So-
Yeah, which cult classics aren't bad.
No,
they're
absolutely.
cult classics for a reason. But
they-
you're right. Granted, obviously, we're looking at this through 2020 lens here. You think
Right,
about
obviously.
Alien, but compare Alien to Star Beast. It's just like
It just doesn't have the same ring
I
to
can't
it.
think
doesn't.
of, in an alternate reality, three dudes sitting in this room, hopefully in a way better house, thinking, dude, you guys see, we love
Y'all
Star
go
Beast.
see
It's
Star
a
Beast?
great
Rolls
movie.
off the tongue. Star Beast.
All right, guys. So that brings us to the end of our discussion of It Doesn't. Michael, there was something you want to talk about the cat at the end of this film.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So Jonesy. So my whole thing about this being a comfort animal. Now that we know this isn't any huge revelation. This is just I didn't want to ruin the film.
Right.
So with the cats being on the spaceship, I think it's less about having. Obviously, the idea is that they're in like their hibernation state. But whenever they're awake in this state, if in any event it's not just for one, if it's multiple, there's a long trek back to Earth. And if they're alone or if they have anything like that, those cats, especially in Ripley's case, and again, knowing the end-all goal of this mission, sure, it could have went completely south. But having that cat on board for those long treks of 6 weeks or 12 weeks or however long it could have been, I think that in order to continue on with the franchise, they had to have some type of creature there for Ripley to have connected with in her long journey back, because 6 weeks alone on a small pod
yeah.
would
Crazy.
have made her absolutely
It's like a therapy
insane.
animal.
Yeah, so exactly. So I feel like the cat was there and survived specifically, maybe even as an afterthought for the movie. Maybe they added it in as a comfort animal, and maybe they intended it to die. But having Ripley being alone on a spaceship for 6 weeks would have just been, and it would have made her crazy and unable to. It makes sense for a sequel.
I just
That's
want
fair.
to point out too. Earlier, I mentioned that the Xenomorph's afraid of a cat. I was just being facetious, by the way.
Okay.
Maybe he is. We don't know though. We really don't.
We don't know.
Cats are fucking terrifying. They're awful creatures, really. So.
All right, so like I said, that brings us to the conclusion of our discussion for Alien. But you guys know this is the Final Girl podcast, and we cannot leave this movie hanging without discussing the final girl that is in Alien,
So pumped. For this
Ellen
conversation.
Ripley. All right, guys, you know the question I want to ask. If you were to rank Ellen Ripley on a scale from S to F, S being the best, F being the worst, where would you put her on the scale?
S.
I mean, there.
I can think of two Final Girls in horror movies that will be in S tier, and Ellen Ripley is one of them. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
Off podcast, I need to talk about the second one because I want to know what your second one is. But, okay.
I can't stress enough how much, because like I'm so we've talked about things in other podcasts where we rank other things. I'm so critical of an S tier. I hate giving S to anything because I just feel like one day there will be something that can fulfill that wild fantasy for me. No pun intended. Sigourney Weaver, love you. But this character rises to the challenge in every situation. She knows exactly what to do at the exact right time. She shows no fear whenever she doesn't need to. She shows tenacity. She not only does she survive, she knows exactly what to do. She doesn't panic. I mean, and she's a fucking hard ass.
She is.
She is, yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind. I agree with Roger 100%. Ellen Ripley is an S tier final girl survivor. Like she is amazing.
And she inspires a video game series. That character. I mean,
Yeah,
she
I'm
created
right there
a
with you
franchise
guys.
movies. Like she's
Ellen Ripley is my first S tier final girl that we've had in the show so far. She like you said, she embodies everything that you need to embody for not only just a final girl, but also a fantastic character.
Yep.
She's strong-headed. She's strong-willed. She doesn't let like her emotions get to her. She thinks things through. She's very well equipped to handle what she needs to handle when it's given to her. And she also takes all the bullshit that the guys on the ship threw at her and just handles it so well. She doesn't get all upset that they're not listening to her. She takes it very levelly and like level-headedly and just goes about and says, okay, and continues on. And
plus,
so
not to mention the most important aspect. Like I said, she looks great in a tank top and underwear.
she looks great in a tank top and underwear. So
I'm just saying, if you're getting chased by a monster, there are important elements you need to instill in a movie to make me.
We're not going to discuss that scene, but can we just talk about the fact I love the way that's done though, because it's not done to be sexual.
No, it's
exactly,
not.
absolutely.
she's just trying to get relaxed after a rough day on the ship.
Right. She is getting, because if you look at the beginning of the movie, when they're in stasis, they're all naked.
Yeah.
And so they're only clothing with like their underwear, I'm pretty sure. And so that's just generally what happens on the ship to go into stasis. She's not stripping down to be sexual or anything. It's just she's just going to bed.
Yeah, that scene was to instill a sense of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there was probably some underlying elements of, oh, there hasn't been anything in this movie. It's rated
Right.
R. We can get away with things. But from the viewer standpoint, it really was about vulnerability in that moment. So, yeah, I mean,
So
I
yeah.
just had to mention that. It's
So Ellen Ripley, congratulations. You are the Final Girl podcast first
I love you,
S
Sigourney
tier
Weaver.
Final Girl. So
get your medal. I'll
yeah.
give it to you in person.
Also, another special thing we get to talk about now. We have a monster in this film, and I love to rank my monsters. So, gentlemen, where would you rank the Xenomorph in terms of movie monsters?
Now, are we talking about the xenomorph from this or xenomorphs in general?
Let's just go Xenomorphs from. I don't want to stay in general because there's so many different types of Xenomorphs, just like with the Predator. There's so many different types of Predators. So
Yeah.
let's go with this Xenomorph.
Okay.
Because if we do like aliens or another kind of like another alien or something like that, we'll discuss those.
Is this the same S to F tier?
Yeah.
Is this the first of the monsters we've ranked?
No, we ranked other monsters
No, there
before.
have been others.
Okay,
yeah.
I haven't. I mean, I admittedly have not listened to every episode of the show. I've listened to several episodes of the show, and I'm trying to.
We ranked the Babadook, the creature like It from It Follows. I think those are I think those are the only two we've
Where
done.
did they
Yeah,
rank? Do you
yeah.
recall? I'm trying to get a.
I think the
baseline.
Babadook was like C or D, and I think the creature from It Follows was like a B.
I mean, I love It Follows, but if It Follows the B, then the Xenomorph has to at least be an A.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna
S for iconicness.
give it an S, and not because of not that I don't agree with Roger, but not for the iconic nature. The adaptability to the situations is just is unparalleled. And the specific scene that comes to mind is whenever she triggers the self-destruct. There's such a strong sense of when she goes to that escape pod. Yes, you can think about it in the sense of it's a horror movie; it has to be there. But that thing knew. Like it knew it had to be there in order to survive. And not only to survive, maybe it could have survived on the ship, with no oxygen, who knows, but it's all about getting its prey.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly there. Yeah.
So that and the ability, obviously you have to take into account, it has blood, acid
it's got
blood.
acid blood.
It's got acid
It's
blood.
got acid blood. And it grows huge in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, like it's unparalleled,
And and Ellen Ripley had to use an asinine level of ingenuity to get rid of it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I agree with you. I would rank it like a low S, but it's still an S tier for me.
I just can't think of anything that would ever be able to beat Xenomorph in a fight. So like I can't think
I've got
anything
I've
in
got
an
other
S,
movie monsters though that I could rank higher.
Yeah, I mean that's
So
especially for the movies they're in, but I would have to say an S, and I could agree with you. There could be more if there were more profound thematic elements that compound on those things. But I think, like I said, in the general sense of the movie, I think there are enough of those to really prove that point. Everything that this creature does reacts to the situation that they put it
Absolutely.
in a perfect way. And it goes back to show the animalistic nature that Ash had discussed and how this was the perfect
organism.
organism. And I think the thematic elements play perfectly in this thing's favor. I'm going to have to give it an S tier.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think Ripley is an S for Final Girl. Xenomorph is an S for our monster.
And this is an S movie.
Yeah, this movie. Yeah, I don't do the ranking the movie anymore. I've kind of cut that out. But yeah, this movie's 5 out of 5. Like it's maybe 4.5 out of 5. Like there could be better things, but
maybe. But I mean, in the sense,
it's so good.
Even down to casting. I mean, everything is just knocked out of the park.
that,
Also,
one thing I do want to mention, if
on.
you don't mind, I know I keep talking about how this harkens to other movies. I feel like just because like take the fact that we ranked this monster and Ripley is an S. Like the way that she thinks and the way that she adapts and the way this creature thinks and the way that it adapts, they create like this perfect harmonization for hero villain.
It's like yin and yang, really.
Exactly.
Right.
However, I feel like that's the reason that Alien 4 exists. If you think about what takes place in that movie, and I won't discuss it, go look it up. It's fucking terrible.
Don't watch it. Just read it on Wikipedia.
It's so stupid. But that whole like symbiotic creature and child thing that they try to, I feel like that's literally the reason, was because there's such a perfect mesh between, like Roger said, the yin and the yang of these things. I feel like that's the only reason that exists. And it just goes again to show just how perfect this movie really is. I cannot stress enough. If you've listened this far in this podcast and didn't watch this movie, slap yourself again and then go watch this fucking movie. All right.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for listening. Michael, Roger, thank you guys for being here. I think this was a great episode, and I'm super happy to have you guys here for this episode. Guys, if you want to know more about the Final Girl Podcast, go check out patreon.com/Final Girl Podcast. There you can subscribe if you would like to. I appreciate everyone who does so far. $5 to get you access to the Movie of the Month Club, which is always a good time. We like to watch movies on Discord and just talk about while we're watching them. Not movies that we've covered on the show. They're usually not. We haven't yet watched one that we've covered on the show.
We probably will, though.
Eventually we will, though. Yeah, it's just at this time we haven't. They're usually just random horror movies that we watch. But yeah, $5 to get you there. Join our Discord. It is completely free to join the Discord. We talk about all the movies we discuss on this podcast on there, just all kinds of stuff in general. Take it from these guys. We talk all the time on that Discord about stuff. So
it do be like that most
the
of
link
the
for
time.
the Discord is in the description down below, so make sure you check that out. Also, 13 Palm Trees Podcast Productions, they bring you this podcast bi-weekly, so we thank them. Check out their other shows that are on. Roger, you are the host of Goobers of Gaming, so tell us a little about that show.
We talk about video games.
Okay, great. Michael, you got Video Game Mythos and also D&D Kinda. You're talking about video games.
Don't let Roger fool you. Goobers of Gaming is a fantastic video gaming talk show podcast. Please go listen to it. It's hilarious. I can't say enough good things about it. Video Game Mythos is more of a dive into video game characters. If you like the analysis that goes into this show, Video Game Mythos, think about it as the video game counterpart to this. And D&D Kinda is something that I wrote with D&D. It's just terrible because Jed's there. Just kidding. It's a good story. Go check it out.
See, I'll take that back. I'll be like, you said Goobers of Gaming is not bad. D&D is great, guys. Go check D&D Kinda out. Also, Waste Local Talent, Daniel and Jed and Josiah and Ashley. I forgot her name. I apologize. They all run that show. They interview local bands and people around West Virginia, so it's a good time. Also, guys, check out the facebook.com/Final Girl Podcast. Also, find us on Instagram at Instagram.com/Final Girl Podcast. I don't know if I want to change that to the Final Girl, because that's the only thing I have that's not the Final Girl Podcast.
You're the man. You do the thing.
But it's just at Final Girl Podcast.
Your show, your accounts, buddy.
So, yeah. Also, guys, we have merch out. If you guys want some merch, check out 13 Palm Trees website, 13palmtrees.com. Go get you some sweet, sweet merch.
I got one of them.
Rock on your body.
Merch shirts.
Yeah, they're super comfy, super nice.
They do be nice, though.
Super excited to finally have merch out there. So if you guys want some, go swag that. Go grab that while you can.
I have my hand raised. Can I say something?
Sure, go ahead.
So recently it has come to light how many people really do love this show. And I can't say enough good things about it myself. I love coming on. I love listening. I just recently listened to the Sleepaway Camp episode. And it just goes to show how great the show is, how awesome of a host Ryan is, how awesome of a job he does introducing guests like Roger, who gave a great discussion on a movie that I didn't even enjoy. I watched a little bit of the movie and I was like, well, this is dog shit. But one, I didn't have to watch the movie and I listened to the show and it was fantastic. But Ryan does such a great job on this show. And in order for this show to succeed and any podcast that you enjoy to succeed, please go leave a 5-star rating. Please go write a review talking about how you like the show. The show won't grow without those ratings. So I'm not sitting here begging you to go and leave just a pity review. I'm saying if you've made it this far into the show, you like something about it. So we want to know what it is.
Yeah.
Go tell us. Go smash the 5-star button. Leave a review, not only because we want to know what you like about it. If you think it's great, but there's things that you'd like to see, tell us that too.
Absolutely.
We want to know all those things. So we want to see the show expand. We want to see the show grow. Let us know what you want to see. And if you do that, it will grow in ratings and more people will know. That will get us more funding. That will get us more things that we can do to better the show and make better content.
And I speak to that. I mean, I can agree with that experience with how Gurus of Gaming has evolved over the last 2 years that it's been existing. You know, we changed format several times before we finally settled on what we've been doing for about the last 3 or 4 months now. So, you know, we listen to fan feedback.
Well, I appreciate that a lot, guys. And that is something too, guys. October's coming up. I know it's not like right away, but it's coming up. I want to do a lot in October. So that will only be possible if you guys keep spreading the word of this show around and get more and more people listening to it, because I really want to make October something special. And so let's make that happen, guys.
I'll make it happen for you because I love you.
Hey, thank you. I love you too.
I won't.
All right, great. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. I do appreciate it. Roger, Michael, once again, thank you guys for being here. You guys were great. So that's all we have for this episode of the Final Girl Podcast. Until next time, guys, take it easy.